Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of humankind. We beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important trusts in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. All which we ask in the name and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Are there any notices of motion? You don't suspend notices of motion. Read your standing orders properly. Are there any notices of motion? There is none. Notice of motion number 1, the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I move that provisions of Standing Orders number 53, subsection 1, 66, subsection 2, and 68, subsection 5, regarding the automatic...
Just a second, Honorable Minister. Clerk, the volume is too low. ICT, the volume is too low. Can you try? That's
Yes.
much better.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that provisions of Standing Orders number 53, subsection 1, 66, subsection 2, and 68, subsection 5, regarding the automatic adjournment of the House at 5 minutes to 7 o'clock p.m. on sitting days other than a Friday, and at 25 minutes past 1 o'clock p.m. on Fridays. Private members' motion taking precedence on Wednesdays after question time, and that question time shall be on Wednesdays respectively, be suspended with effect from today, the 3rd of June 2026, and subsequent sittings in respect of the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Bill number 3 and any other government business. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs that the provisions of Standing Orders numbers 53, subsection 1, 66, subsection 2, 68, subsection 5, regarding the automatic adjournment of the House at 5 minutes to 7 o'clock p.m. on sitting days other than Friday, and at 25 minutes past 1 o'clock on a Friday. Private members' motions taking precedence on Wednesdays after question time, and that question time shall be on Wednesdays respectively, be suspended with effect from today and subsequent sittings in respect of the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 Bill HB 1 2026 and any other government business. Is there a debate?
Yes, there is debate.
Honorable Ziyambi?
Yes. Mr. Speaker, say we hear what the Honorable Minister is proposing. And Mr. Speaker, say I humbly stand up to oppose such a request. The Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 requires all of us to debate it in sound mind. And it will be wrong for us to push and fast track this bill to debate it in the middle of the night. The bill has to be debated during the course of normal parliamentary days so that Zimbabweans can actually follow the debate that will be happening in this August House. So it is wrong. It is wrong, Mr. Speaker, say, to then suspend normal parliamentary business. I think let's just continue with parliamentary business as usual, and we debate and we do it in the proper manner. And I think this is important because we as Parliament, we represent the people and we represent the citizens. Let the citizens hear our voice. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Point of order. Point of order. Point of order. Order. I did not quite follow when the Honorable Mshariwa indicated that the public may not follow. What exactly do you mean? Before I make my ruling? Order.
Mr. Speaker, say.
Just a minute. Order. We are not at a picnic here. Honorable Mshariwa, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, say the normal hours of parliamentary business are stipulated within our standing orders. the minister proposed to ensure that the automatic adjournment of this House be suspended, implying that the debate on the CAB3 and other government business will then proceed even in the midst of the night. Our people, the people that elected and sent us to Parliament, if a debate is done in during the midnight, they will not be in a position to follow, because remember, our debate is actually televised and people want to follow the debate. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, say, the security of your members of Parliament, our primary concern. We do not want to travel overnight, especially for some of us that do not stay within hotels.
Honorable Matangira, can you follow the proceeding in terms of our standing orders? Honorable Mshoriwa, can you wind up?
Yes, so Mr. Speaker, say, this is the reason why I am actually saying that we should not go along with the request by the minister to suspend our standing orders pertaining to this bill and other government business. We need to debate and to do it in the normal manner that we have always done as a parliament. And in any event, Mr. Speaker, say, we are not running anyway. There's no need to fast track CAB3. Let us discuss it, debate it, agree or disagree, so that the people of Zimbabwe will follow. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister has followed what is provided for in the standing orders. And just a minute. And the standing orders are guided also in terms of their implementation by the presiding officers. And further, the suspension of this nature is not the first one. In the past, we have had to deal with matters in terms of the sections of the standing orders that have been quoted, including when we debate the national budget until the early hours of the morning. On the other hand, the concerns about the question of security and so on, that will be decided by the presiding officer. And your point is taken note of. Is there any further debate? Yes, Honorable Mausa.
Honorable Ama Uskwa.
Amauso, yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You didn't hear me properly.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to add my voice on objecting to the issue raised by Honorable Minister of Justice, specifically focusing on security.
Order. I thought you were coming with something different. I've made a ruling.
I wanted
already
to mention on.
I have made a ruling already. Please take your seat. I thought you were bringing something new. No.
Mr. Speaker,
when you say you want to add your voice, what do you mean? I don't understand English.
No, yeah, but there's something that was missed by
No,
Honorable.
you should have added your voice on a different matter altogether, not after my
May
ruling.
you can kindly pardon me.
Order.
Further debate, Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, during budget meetings, will be rushing against stipulated time. Budgets must be passed before the
Order. You are raising the same matter. I've ruled already. Don't waste our time. I put the question that the provisions of standing orders number 53, subsection 1, 66, subsection 2, and 68, subsection 5, regarding the automatic adjournment of the House at 5 minutes to 7 o'clock on sitting days other than Friday at 25 minutes past 1 o'clock p.m. on Friday, private members' motion taking precedence on Wednesdays after question time, and that question time shall be on Wednesdays respectively, be suspended with effect from today and subsequent sittings in respect of the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Bill number 3, HB 1 2026, and any other government business. Those that of opinion will say aye. Those that of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the provisions of standing orders. Order. I've heard your notes, please. Order. The provisions of standing order numbers 53 subsection 1 and 62 subsection 2 and 68 subsection 5 are suspended accordingly. The Clerk of Parliament will read second order of the day.
Second reading, Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 Bill HB 1 2026.
The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs that the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 Bill HB 1 2026 be now read. Sorry. May I call upon the Honorable Minister to move that the bill be now read a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to present my second reading speech and move that the bill be read the second time. Mr. Speaker,
Point of order, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes, what's the point of order?
Mr.
In
Speaker,
terms of
sir.
what section, standing order?
Yes, I rise in terms of standing order 65, ready together with the standing order 98, 1 subsection E.
Standing order number?
98, 1E.
98,
Yes,
1B.
1E.
Did you say B?
E
E.
for Edwin.
Okay. What is the issue, Honorable Member?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, say the standing order expressly prohibits members from referring to matters on which a judicial decision is pending Honorable Speaker, Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 is presently the subject of proceeding before the Constitutional Court in, among other matters, Prince Duveko Sibanda versus Parliament of Zimbabwe, and Ruben Zulu and others versus President of Zimbabwe and the Attorney General. The Constitutional Court has heard the matter and reserved judgment. And it is my view, Mr. Speaker, that any debate on this bill will inevitably touch on issues that are currently awaiting judicial determination. Proceeding with the debate would therefore place members in the position of discussing matters that are sub judice and may undermine the doctrine of separation of powers and the authority of the Constitutional Court. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, respectfully request that the debate on CAB3 be stayed until the Court has actually made this ruling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The judgment was there and it's a reserved judgment. Honorable Minister, you may proceed.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker, sir. Point of order.
On a point of order,
Mr.
Madam
Speaker. Yeah.
On a point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Nobody has spoken, so there's no point of order.
Point of privilege, Mr. Speaker. Point of privilege.
Honorable Minister.
Point of privilege, Mr.
Thank
Speaker.
you, Mr. Speaker.
There's no point of privilege. Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Point of clarity. Point of clarity, Mr. Speaker. Point of clarity, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Order.
Point of clarity.
Order.
Ruling.
Order.
Point of clarity, Mr. Speaker.
Can you sit down?
A reserved judgment
A reserved judgment is not a judgment. There is no judgment.
Order. Can you sit
The
down?
court has reserved its judgment. It has not entered
Honorable
judgment.
member,
So
I'm warning you for the second time now.
yeah,
Can
but
you
we
sit
are
down?
correcting you, Mr. Speaker. There's no judgment.
Can you
The
sit
ruling
down?
is wrong.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to present my second reading speech on the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a defining moment in our constitutional evolution, a journey rooted in the liberation struggle fought and won by the heroic sons and daughters of the soil, shaped by the aspirations of our people and given formal expression in the Constitution we adopted by and for ourselves as Zimbabwe in 2013. Constitutions, Mr. Speaker, said, by their very nature, are not monuments cast permanently in stone. They are living instruments of good governance, designed to respond to changing realities, to emerging challenges, and to the ever-evolving needs and aspirations of society. The true strength of a constitutional democracy lies not in rigid permanency, but in its capacity for lawfully reasoned and progressive adaptation. Mr. Speaker said, this bill is therefore not an abandonment of our constitutional order in any way, shape or form, but a continuation of it. It is the product of practical experience, of institutional reflection, and of the honest recognition that after more than a decade of implementation, certain provisions of the 2013 Constitution require refinement to enhance their functionality, their coherence, and their service to national progress. Mr. Speaker, sir, I ask this Honorable House to weigh the bill in that spirit A republic confident enough to write its own founding law must be mature enough to improve it. What I bring before you is not a leap into an unknown, but a measured step, informed by the realities of constitutional governance, by lessons drawn from our history and comparable jurisdictions, and by our shared determination that the supreme law of our land should remain an instrument for development rather than an obstacle to it. Let me begin, Mr. Speaker, as candor requires, not with what the bill does, but with what it does not do. Because a great deal of what has been said about it beyond the walls of this chamber bears little resemblance to the text that lies before honorable members. Mr. Speaker said what the bill does not do. Mr. Speaker, there have been many claims about this bill circulated in the press and in the public square, especially on social media platforms, which are simply not true. Before I comment a single clause to this honorable House, I want to place those claims beside the text and answer them plainly. Let me state clearly and without qualification 5 things this bill simply does not do. First, Mr. Speaker, it does not give the President a term extension or a 3rd term. Second, Mr. Speaker, it does not take away the right to vote, which is enshrined in the time-honored principle of universal suffrage. Third, it does not at all concern itself with succession in any political party. Fourth, it does not postpone the nation's elections to some distant or unknown year. Lastly, fifth, it does not concentrate power or the running of elections in the hands of the President. None of these things is true of the bill before this honorable House. I will return, Mr. Speaker, to each of them in its place, and I will show clause by clause why each charge fails against the text. But I wanted honorable members and the members of the public who may be following our proceedings to hear at the outset and in plain terms what this bill does not do. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to what this bill does. What then does this bill do? Mr. Speaker said the bill contains 22 clauses. Effectively, if I discount the title, 21. This does not mean it does 21 things, because when all is said and done, it actually seeks to do 2 main things around which it aligns the constitutional text. First, Mr. Speaker, the bill reforms the manner in which we choose and hold our highest office, so that the President is elected by the people through their parliament, the chamber that the people themselves elect, and remains continuously answerable to. Secondly, the bill reforms the length of our national electoral cycle, extending the term of office of the President and the lifespan of Parliament from 5 years to 7, so that the people's government has the time to plan, to build, and to be judged on what it has delivered. Let me develop each of these, Mr. Speaker, for they are not slogans. They are reforms with important reasons behind them. The first reform speaks to the temperature of our politics. For more than 3 decades, the direct national election contest for the presidency has been the single most divisive event in our public life. The moment at which the nation divides against itself. By drawing the election of the president into this parliament, the bill ties the highest office to the confidence of the people's elected representatives and replaces a winner-takes-all electoral context with a model that fosters and rewards consensus, coalition building, and the ability to command broad support across the Honorable House in the national interest. The president, so chosen, is accountable, not once in an election after several years, but continuously within an electoral cycle through the confidence of Parliament. The second reform, Mr. Speaker, speaks to the work of governing. Under a 5-year electoral cycle, such as the one we currently have, the first year is consumed by transition, forming a government, settling its administration, and too often litigating the election that just concluded. By the 4th year, attention turns to the next contest. By the 5th, the nation is immersed in campaigning. The window left for the actual business of governance for development is narrow indeed. A trunk road, a dam, a power station, the reform of a school or a health system, these are works of long horizons. Roads are not built in cycles of polarizing political campaigns, and power stations do not come online according to electoral calendars. Extending the electoral cycle to 7 years creates the constitutional space for strategic planning, disciplined execution, and measurable delivery. It allows government to spend less of its strength contesting power in a perennial survival mode and more of it governing well and delivering requisite services to the people. These, Mr. Speaker, are the two reforms. I now turn to why they are necessary. Mr. Speaker said, no parliament should amend the supreme law of the land without first being satisfied that there is a real and serious mischief to be cured. So let me put the mischief squarely before honorable members. It is not abstract. It is the lived experience of this nation across more than 3 decades, and it can be traced to a single route, the way we have chosen our president since 1990, and the short, dysfunctional, and restless electoral cycle in which we have done so. Since the introduction of direct presidential elections in 1990, our public life has been gripped by 5 connected afflictions. 5 afflictions that have stood between this country and the development and progress its people deserve. They are not separate problems. They feed one another, and each electoral cycle has made them worse. The first, Mr. Speaker, is the perennially disputed presidential election. Every contest for the presidency this nation has held since the turn of the century, in 2000, 2002, 2008, 2013, 2018, and again in 2023, has been marred by relentless allegations of violence, of rigging, of opacity, eroding public trust, and the legitimacy of the result. This is not my characterization alone, Mr. Speaker. It is documented notably in the observer reports of the AU, of the SADC reports, and of the Commonwealth, which have linked these disputes to economic sanctions against our country and to the flight of investment. By some estimates, as much as USD 50 to 70 billion of investment opportunities lost over these years, and the scholarship agrees. Mr. Speaker said, Cheeseman and Dodsworth, writing in the Journal of Modern African Studies, find that electoral disputes of this kind foster chronic instability. The second affliction, Mr. Speaker, sir, is policy paralysis born of perpetual campaigning. Our short 5-year terms tend to trap those in office in a continuous election mode, derailing and delaying the long programs a developing nation such as ours critically depends upon. Our own National Development Strategy 1 and 2, our own Vision 2030. This is not campaigning in the ordinary sense. It is a perpetual posture of destructive contest that crowds the work of governing out. The Commonwealth Secretariat, Mr. Speaker, reporting in 2002, and SADC reporting in 2018, both identified post-election polarization as a major bottleneck in development. A drag estimated on some analysis at 30 to 40 billion United States dollars in foregone productivity, with the African Development Bank putting the cost of our electoral cycles at 2 to 3% of GDP in every year they consume. The third affliction, Mr. Speaker, sir, is the grip of corruption, amplified by instability. Where political survival is a perpetual question, Mr. Speaker, sir, accountability weakens, and the conditions in which graft flourishes are created and recreated with every electoral cycle. Electoral patronage feeds it. Transparency International estimated in 2023 that corruption costs this country between 1 and 2 billion United States dollars in every year that passes, and the Zimbabwe Election Support Network has documented the predictability spikes in irregular tenders that accompany an election. Some 150 million United States dollars worth in 2023 alone. Instability and corruption are not separate diseases, Mr. Speaker, say. The one feeds the other. The fourth affliction is bureaucratic inefficiency and the politicization of the public service. A public service that should be neutral, professional, and continuous is in a state held in permanent contest, disrupted by purges and by favoritism, a pattern noted in Commonwealth, AU, and SADC reporting across 2005 and 2013. The Election Resource Center has estimated the resulting productivity losses at some 600 million United States dollars a year, and the historian Brian Raptopoulos has linked this politicization to inefficiencies of real and lasting weight. The citizen who simply needs a service from the state is the one who pays. And last but not least, Mr. Speaker, sir, the fifth affliction is societal polarization. Each disputed election, each season of perpetual electoral conflict drives the nation further apart, fueling immigration and unrest. The work of Norma Krieger in the African Studies Review and the reporting of the AU and SADC trace the cause of this division in economic terms and in human capital. Our country has lost to immigration, which the International Organization of Migration has counted in the billions. A society asked every few years to divide itself in a bitter national contest does not easily yield in the short interval before the next election. Mr. Speaker, sir, These 5 afflictions, perennially disputed presidential elections, policy paralysis, instability-fueled corruption, a politicized bureaucracy, and a polarized society, took root with the introduction of direct presidential elections in 1990. And their toxicity intensified sharply from 2000 onwards. They are not separate problems. They are structural and interconnected, each feeding the others, and all rooted in the same electoral toxicity. Their cumulative cost to this nation has been estimated conservatively at between 150 to 200 billion United States dollars in lost output, productivity, and human capital. Whatever the precise figure, Mr. Speaker, the direction is not in doubt. The enemies our liberation was fought to defeat, the hunger, the poverty, the disease, and the ignorance that still shadow too many of our communities cannot be driven back by a government held in a 5-year window, of which the better part is spent defending itself and preparing for the next election that promises more conflict. That is the mischief we are trying to deal with, Mr. Speaker. It is real, it is documented, and it is no longer one this nation can afford to carry. The question this bill answers is, what kind of remedy does such a mischief demand? Mr. Speaker, sir, when a problem is structural, the remedy must be structural too. This is the point on which I most wish to be understood, because it is the point most often missed. When critics are told that this country has suffered from the affliction of perennially disputed elections, from corruption, from instability and division, some invariably reply that the answer is simply for good people to replace the bad people and hold office. That the government should employ honest officials, that leaders should behave with greater virtue, that all of us should become better angels. That is not the answer, Mr. Speaker said. It is a wish. 5 afflictions that have persisted across 3 decades and 7 presidential elections, deepening with each electoral cycle, are not the product of bad people who just need to be replaced by good ones. They are the product of a structural malaise, of the incentives, the pressures, and the conflicts that our constitutional arrangements themselves created and bred. To keep doing the same thing, election after election, while hoping for a different result, is not statesmanship. It is the very definition of folly. A structural problem, Mr. Speaker, is cured by changing the structure that produces it, by reshaping the arrangements within which those who hold power must act. That is what this bill does. It does not ask anyone to become an angel. It changes the structural design so that the ordinary conduct of office produces stability rather than conflict, construction rather than perpetual contest. The 2 major reforms at the heart of this bill, the manner of electing the president and the length of the national electoral cycle, are structural responses to structural ills that have produced the structural afflictions that have bedeviled our country.
Order. Order. Honorable Minister Professor Mavima, please take a seat there at the back. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And these reforms in the bill are not experiments, Mr. Speaker. They are informed by our experience of 7 presidential elections since 1990, each more contested than the previous, and by the tested constitutional practice of the most stable democracies in our neighborhood and across the world. It is those 2 reforms and the clauses that give them effect to which I now want to turn, Mr. Speaker. I will go to the core amendments. Mr. Speaker, these 4, I will turn now to clause 3, 4, 9, and 10. Mr. Speaker, these 4 clauses are the heart of the bill. They should be read together because they are harmonious and mutually supportive, each reinforcing the others, each doing a part of the same. Clause 3 reforms the manner in which we choose our highest office. Clauses 4, 9, and 10 reform the length of the national electoral cycle within which that office is held and align the calendar of our elections accordingly. Together, Mr. Speaker, they constitute a single, coherent, structural response to the 5 persistent and pernicious afflictions this country has carried since 1990. Clause 3 deals with the election method and provides that the President shall be elected by Parliament in a joint sitting of the Senate and National Assembly by a clear majority of members, with a runoff where no majority is reached and under the supervision of ZEC. The people's voice, Mr. Speaker, is not removed by this reform. It travels by a different and steadier route. The people elect Parliament. Parliament in turn elects the President and holds the President to account, not once every several years, but continuously through the confidence of Parliament. Executive authority continues to derive from the people, which is the very principle Section 88 of our Constitution lays down. Only the transmission mechanism changes. For too long, Mr. Speaker, our presidential elections have been framed as zero-sum contest in which victory by one side means total exclusion of the other. Such a culture breeds division, mistrust, and policy paralysis. A parliamentary mechanism changes those incentives from the ground up. It encourages consensus building, coalition making, and constructive engagement across political lines. It rewards leadership that can command broad-based support rather than leadership grounded solely in electoral mobilization. A president who must continuously hold the confidence of Parliament cannot govern against it. That is accountability made permanent, not periodic. The doctrine of responsible government that underlines every mature constitutional democracy. This is the settled practice of our nearest neighbors, where South Africa elects its president from Parliament, and Botswana's president is the leader of the party commanding a parliamentary majority. Both are arguably the most stable, best governed democracies on our continent. And let me correct a misconception, Mr. Speaker, being deployed against this clause. The direct election of our president is not a founding feature of our constitutional settlement. Zimbabwe was governed from independence through a parliamentary model. Direct presidential election was introduced only in 1987 through Constitutional Amendment number 7 in the context of the Unity Accord and the then anticipated one-party state. Those defending direct election as an axiomatic democratic principle are defending an arrangement younger, Mr. Speaker, than our independence, adopted for a purpose this House would not today endorse, unless if this House wants us to turn the country into a one-party state. Then I will agree to have a direct election, because it will be a one-party, and then we can go for a direct presidential election. For the purpose that it was introduced in the first place was for us to have a one-party state. Yeah, okay, one-party state. Mr. Speaker, sir, the current system of directly electing the president harbors three profound risks and vulnerabilities that are entirely eliminated when Parliament assumes the sole responsibility of choosing the nation's leader. Firstly, as we witnessed during the 2023 harmonized general elections, a high-profile regional, continental, or international observer mission can deploy as few as 68 observers to cover a mere 172 polling stations out of more than 12,374 nationwide. From this extremely narrow sample, such a mission can issue a sweeping, hostile, and damaging verdict on the freeness and fairness and credibility of the entire electoral cycle. This glaring vulnerability has repeatedly sown the seeds of electoral disputes that continue to haunt our democracy. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, direct elections opens the door for an independent candidate, even one potentially sponsored by the country's adversaries, who commands no seats whatsoever in this House, to capture the president. Such an outcome would fundamentally destabilize the governance of the Republic and fracture the vital link between the executive and the legislature. The method by which we select our president must never permit so grave a possibility. Third, Mr. Speaker, sir, the present arrangements allow for 4 provinces to decide the presidents by themselves through sheer numerical weight. I want to repeat this, Mr. President. The present arrangement allows only 4 provinces to decide the presidents by themselves through sheer numerical weight, based on the 2023 voters' roll. Harare, Manicaland, Mashonaland West, and Midlands together accounted for 3,540,000 voters of the country's 6,600,000 registered voters, more than half the national total. In a direct popular vote, of course with a possible runoff, candidate gets 50+1, it is entirely possible for a candidate to secure outright victory with overwhelming majorities in just these 4 provinces, while losing the other 6 entirely, or even if larger parts of the Republic cast no votes at all. So these 4 provinces, even if everyone else does not vote, they can actually ensure that that happens. This structural flaw risks leaving vast regions of our nation politically marginalized and should concern every fair-minded citizen committed to true national cohesion and unity. By contrast, Mr. Speaker, election through parliament draws every province, every region, and every voice into the choice, leaving no one and no place behind. It ensures balanced representation, strengthens institutional legitimacy, and safeguards our democracy against these serious threats. On the law, Mr. Speaker, the bill reforms the method of election by amending Section 92, which sits in Chapter 5. It is not in Chapter 4, and it does not amend Chapter 4, the Declaration of Rights, nor Section 328 itself, Mr. Speaker. The Constitutional Court, in the Mpungu judgment of 2021, affirmed that the referendum requirement in Section 328 is triggered by the constitutional text which is amended, not by the consequences said to flow from it. On that footing, Mr. Speaker, this reform proceeds by 2/3 majority of this House. I now turn to clause 4, 9, and 10, the term length or electoral cycle. Mr. Speaker said, these three clauses must be taken together for their one reform expressed 3 times. Clause 4 amends Section 95, subsection 2 of the Constitution to extend the presidential term length, that is the electoral cycle, from 5 to 7 years. Clause 9 does the same for Parliament by amending Section 143, subsection 1, so that the 2 branches rise and fall together rather than drifting out of alignment. Clause 10 aligns the 7-year election calendar. Their coherence is the point. A 7-year presidency alongside a 7-year parliament on the same electoral cycle, planning and delivering together. Here, Mr. Speaker, said, I must draw the distinction on which this entire debate turns. And I will draw it as plainly, Mr. Speaker, as I can, because much of the criticism of this bill rests on a confusion between 2 things that sounds alike but are wholly different: the length of a term and the limit on terms. Mr. Speaker, said, permit me to share an image, for it has helped me and it may help honorable members. Mr. Speaker, picture a great presidential runway, a permanent, purpose-built platform at the very heart of our constitutional order. That runway is the office of the president itself, the critical infrastructure from which the nation is served and led. Section 95, subsection 2B, is its architect and guardian. It defines the runway's length, how long each authorized use may last, from the swearing in to the next election. It does not choose or restrain any particular operator. It simply ensures that the runway exists as a disciplined, open, permanent public structure belonging to the people of Zimbabwe, available at predictable intervals so that no operator, however popular, can ever claim permanent rights over it. Now, Mr. Speaker, consider the airline that operates on the runway. That airline is the office holder, the individual president. Section 91, subsection 2 speaks to the airline alone, and it issues a firm and personal command. The airline may hold an operating contract, 1 term, renewable once and once only. if the people through Parliament chose to reappoint it. 2 contracts in a lifetime, whether served consecutively or years apart, and never a third under any circumstance. Here is the point, Mr. Speaker. Lengthening the runway does not give an airline an extra contract. Extending the term changes only the length of each contract. It does not change the number of contracts an operator may hold. The limit, Mr. Speaker, remains 2. Section 95, subsection 2 governs the runway, the term length. Section 91, subsection 2 governs the airline, the term limit. The bill lengthens the runway. It does not touch the limit on the airline. The 2-term cap stands exactly where it has always stood. This bill, Mr. Speaker, does not amend Section 91, subsection 2 by a single word. Mr. Speaker, sir, I will not pass over the question I know is in the minds of some honorable members. Does the longer term reach the office as it stands today, or only a future occupant? Mr. Speaker, sir,
on a point of order. On a point of order. On a point of order. On a point of order.
Order.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Can you sit down, please? Except the honorable member who is raising a point of order.
Honorable Speaker, we just wanted to find out, we have got a sitting arrangement in the House. We feel very uncomfortable when the right side comes to the left side. We want to understand what is happening. We feel very intimidated. We feel very intimidated, Mr. Speaker.
Now move the right of side one.
Order. 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 Honorable members, there is still room. Decide if you feel uncomfortable with the overflow, you can come and sit this side.
On a point of order, Madam Honorable Speaker, on a point of order. Honorable Speaker, on a point of order.
Just hold on. The honorable member is still moving. Honorable,
On a point of order, Honorable Speaker.
who has spoken?
Honorable Speaker, on a point of order.
Who has spoken?
Okay, I need guidance on what is happening. That's why I said on a point of order.
I think...
Honorable Speaker, am
Order.
I allowed to cross over
Order.
that side? Because I'm feeling there are
Order.
sides.
Honorable Mokedi, you may not know, perhaps there's a crossover here, so not be unduly worried. The boundary is there. The Honorable Minister, the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I was saying I will not pass over the question I know is in the minds of some honorable members. And the question is, does the longer term reach the office as it stands today, or only a future?
Order. Can the Honorable Minister be heard in silence, please?
Strategic deployment.
Order. Order. Well, I'm so happy that CAB3 can be a unifying force. Welcome home. Welcome home. The Honorable Minister. Order, please. Can we have the Honorable Minister continue?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I was saying that I will not pass over the question I know is in the minds of some honorable members. And the question is, does the longer term reach the office as it stands today, or only a future occupant? Mr. Speaker, it reaches the office as it stands. A constitution, Mr. Speaker, cannot hold one president on a 7-year cycle and the next on a 5. The bill provides for this opened. In the same plain language, the constitution used for the continuation in office of our superior judges in Constitution Amendment Number 2, Act of 2021. It does not hide behind silence, and it takes nothing from the limit on terms which this bill does not touch. I will now turn, Mr. Speaker, to why 7 years. Because it is not an arbitrary number, but a tested governance architecture. First, between 1990, Mr. Speaker, and 2008, the term length of the presidency was 6 years, not much different from 7 years. In September 2025, Guinea adopted a new constitution with a 7-year electoral cycle. France operated a 7-year presidential term for the better part of 127 years, Mr. Speaker. Ireland has elected its president to a 7-year term since 1937. A 5-year cycle, properly counted, yields at best 2 years of genuine, uninterrupted governing. The first consumed by transition, the last by the next campaign. 7 years gives a government the time to see a major program through from design to delivery and to be judged not on what is promised, but on what is built. Mr. Speaker, sir, consider what that time makes possible. Time to plan beyond the next ballot so that a budget saves a decade, not a season. Time to build the roads, the dams, the power that a developing nation cannot complete in the gap between two campaigns. Time to carry a program such as Vision 2030 through to completion. Time, in the end, simply to govern. Mr. Speaker, sir, I now turn to the administrative electoral ecosystem, that is clauses 2, 11, 12, 13, and 17. Mr. Speaker, sir, this next section of clauses concerns the institutions that surround or support our elections. Clause 2 retains the registration of voters and the keeping of the voters' roll to the Registrar General, the office that already holds the record of every citizen's life from birth to death. This is not a novelty, and it is not a partisan measure. I want to say so plainly, Mr. Speaker, and I want to give this honorable House the proof, because it answers directly the charge that this bill concentrates the running of elections in the hands of the executive. The proposal, Mr. Speaker, to return voter registration to the Registrar General did not originate with this government. It first came from the opposition benches of this House on 18 May 2023 in the 9th Parliament during the committee stage of the Electoral Amendment Bill. The Honorable Charlton Wende moved precisely this transfer. He was supported, Mr. Speaker, strongly and on the record by the Honorable Tendai Biti and the Honorable Alan Makam, who pointed out that the Registrar General had already registered well over 1 million citizens, and that everything the Commission was doing in this field, the Registrar General was already doing. It is recorded in the Hansard of that day, a public document, and any honorable member and any member of the press or of the public following these proceedings may check it for themselves. And I told them, Mr. Speaker, then what I tell this honorable House now. I agreed with them. There is no need for the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to register voters. It is better to have the separation and the Registrar General, as the keeper of the nation's civil records, is the natural registrar of voters. The function was placed with the Commission in the first instance not on any principle of electoral independence, but one of mistrust of one official, just one individual, Mr. Tobai Wamdede, in his day. In moving it, we threw the child with the bathwater at considerable and continuing cost, for the Commission cannot so much as clean its roll of the deceased or enroll those who newly come of age without the Registrar General to do it. That one individual, Mr. Speaker, is long gone. The Registrar General biometrically and therefore accurately and reliably registers every citizen continuously as the law requires from birth onward. The Commission, by contrast, appears only when there is an election without the primary data. The sensible course was plain to both sides of this House. The only reason we did not take it then is the very reason, Mr. Speaker, we are gathered here today. The Constitution gives this function to the Commission, and only an amendment to the Constitution can move it. That moment has now come, Mr. Speaker. So I want to thank the Honorable Charlton Wende, because the other two are not there. This is a progressive amendment that he proposed then, but we could not do it because we needed to amend the Constitution. Mr. Speaker said, we are now completing through the proper door what this House had already, across its divisions, found common ground to do. And clauses 11 to 13 carry the same logic into the drawing of electoral boundaries. They establish a dedicated Zimbabwe Delimitation Commission chaired by a judge of the Supreme Court, standing and composed of members chosen for defined expertise in law, in administration and governance, in demography or cartography. Here too, there was agreement in this House that crossed the ISO, that the Commission's proper task is to conduct elections, and that the drawing of boundaries, a distinct and technical discipline, belongs with a body built for it. The bill also extends the interval between the drawing of boundaries and the elections that follow from 6 months to 18, so that no one who runs the race also draws the field, and so that the field is settled well before the contest begins. And finally, on this section, clause 17 completes the rearrangement. It removes from the Commission the functions now placed elsewhere and leaves it free to do its central work, the conduct and supervision of every election and referendum without distraction. This is not the howling out of the Commission that critics allege. It is the focusing of it. A commission, Mr. Speaker, that conducts and supervises election in the land has not been weakened by being relieved of a record-keeping function and a boundary drawing function that sits more naturally elsewhere. The custodian of the civil record is the Registrar General. The drawer of boundaries is a dedicated expert commission. The conduct of the election remains wholly and securely with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. The right to vote is untouched. The separation of these functions, custodian, delimiter, administrator, is the practice of mature electoral democracies, and it is a model that strengthens credibility rather than diminishing it. Mr. Speaker, allow me now to turn to judicial alignment. That is clauses 7, 14, 15, 20, and 21. Mr. Speaker, this next section concerns the institutions of justice and aligns each with the standard its office demands. I take its 5 clauses in turn. Clause 7 raises the question and status of the Office of Attorney General to the standard required of a judge of the Supreme Court. The Attorney General, Mr. Speaker, is the state's principal legal advisor. She or he represents the nation's interests before our highest courts, drafts the legislation this House considers, defends Zimbabwe's legal sovereignty in regional and international forums. She or he sits too on the Judicial Service Commission, besides the most senior judges in the land. It is right that the qualification for such an office should match the company it keeps and the responsibility it discharges. Clause 14 widens the door of the Constitutional Court. It permits the court to hear any matter that raises an arguable point of law of general public importance, where the court grants leave. This enlarges access to justice. It does not narrow it. It allows our apex court to settle with authority the questions that matter the most to citizens and to commerce while a disciplined requirement of leave keeps the court the master of its own role. A constitutional democracy, Mr. Speaker, is better served when its highest court can speak clearly on the questions that most divide us. Clause 15 concerns the appointment of judges. It refines the process, setting aside the public interview and the binding shortlist, while leaving wholly intact the guarantees that truly secure judicial independence, that is, security of tenure, the protection of conditions of service, and the freedom from interference once a judge has taken the bench. This, Mr. Speaker, aligns with Constitution Amendment number 1 of 2017 regarding the appointment of Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice. The Judicial Service Commission continues to be consulted on every appointment. The model this clause restores appointment by the President after consultation with the Commission is the model that prevailed in this country before 2013 and the model that prevails across much of the Commonwealth today. Judicial independence, Mr. Speaker, does not reside in the manner of a judge's appointment. It resides in the protections that surround that judge for every day of service thereafter. Those protections, Mr. Speaker, this bill does not touch, as you will notice. Mr. Speaker, Clause 20 addresses the appointment of the Prosecutor General, and here I must correct a misunderstanding directly. At present, Mr. Speaker, the President appoints the Prosecutor General on the recommendation of the Judicial Service Commission, a body comprised of the most senior judges in the land. But those same judges are the very persons before whom the Prosecutor General's decisions will come in trials, bail application, reviews, and in appeals. To have the judges who adjudicate the prosecutor's cases also select the prosecutor is not a safeguard of independence. It is a structural conflict of interest written into the constitutional text. Clause 20 removes that conflict. And let me be precise, because critics have conflated two separate things. The independence of the Prosecutor General, guaranteed in Section 260, which provides that the office is not subject to the direction or control of any person, is left entirely untouched by this bill. The guarantee of independence stands in full. It is only the conflicted appointment procedure that goes. No comparable democracy in our region, not South Africa, not Kenya, not Botswana, not Ghana, requires a judicial commission to select the prosecutor. Clause 20 brings us into line with others. Clause 21, Mr. Speaker, concerns our traditional leaders, and it resolves a contradiction that sits on the face of the present Constitution. The most powerful fact in this debate is one that the critics do not engage. And I will repeat, Mr. Speaker, the most powerful fact in this debate is one that the critics do not engage. Our chiefs are already, by the Constitution's own design, actors within the state and within constitutional politics. 18 of them, Mr. Speaker, sit in this parliament. 18 chiefs sit in this parliament. So the argument that they are not political is not there. Their votes, Mr. Speaker, are counted in the very 2/3 majority that amends the Constitution. And they are part of the legislature, including the majority that will decide this bill. So the chiefs will decide this bill, Mr. Speaker. which is a legislative process. They preside over our courts of customary law. They administer communal land on behalf of the state. They sit on the National Council of Chiefs. Yet one provision, Mr. Speaker, Section 281, pretends that the same chiefs are private persons who must stand wholly outside political life. Yet they are doing everything in society, in parliament, in courts, administering land, settling disputes. They are everywhere. But this clause says they must stand outside of politics. Mr. Speaker, a constitution that seats traditional leaders in its amending chamber while stripping them of their civic standing of ordinary citizens is internally contradictory. And clause 21 removes the contradiction. Now I must be candid with this House about what is repealed, for the provision did more than one thing. Among its words was a prohibition on traditional leaders violating the fundamental rights of others. Mr. Speaker said, let me be plain. That protection is not lost. It is restored to where it belongs and where it binds every person equally. In chapter 4, the Declaration of Rights, which by its own terms bind the state and every person and institution in Zimbabwe, traditional leaders, Mr. Speaker, among them. The duty of a chief to respect the rights of those he serves does not depend on a special clause singling out chiefs. It rests, as it rests for every one of us, on the Declaration of Rights itself. While clause 21 is an enforced prohibition on civic participation of a class of citizens, what it leaves untouched is the constitutional command in section 281 subsection 1 that traditional leaders act with independence, impartiality and dignity, a command Parliament will give effect through enforceable code of conduct. An unenforced prohibition is replaced by an enforceable standard. That is strengthening accountability, Mr. Speaker, and not weakening it. Mr. Speaker, I am now turning to recalibrating the legislature. Mr. Speaker, sir, Clause 8 permits the President to appoint 10 additional senators, chosen for their professional skills and competence, raising the Senate from 88 members to 90. It has been said that this dilutes an elected chamber. The objection does not survive examination, and I want to give the House three main reasons why. The first is the nature of the Senate itself. The Senate has never been a directly elected chamber. Under the present Constitution, the electorate casts no direct ballot for an individual senator. 60 senators are allocated to political parties by proportional representation. From party lists, the voter has no hand in composing. 16 are traditional chiefs, elected by provincial assemblies of chiefs. 2 hold their seats by virtue of office, and 2 are chosen by an electoral college to represent persons with disabilities. The Senate was constituted in 2013 as a chamber of indirect representation. Clause 8 adds one further indirect method, appointment for expertise to a chamber that has always been filled indirectly. The second reason, Mr. Speaker, is that the appointment power is not unbounded. The text requires that these 10 senators be chosen for their professional skills and competencies. That is a constitutional qualification, and it is justifiable. An appointment that cannot be referred to a genuine professional skill or competence relevant to the work of the Senate may be challenged and set aside by the courts. This places the new seats squarely within an honorable comparative tradition. The nominated members of the Indian Council of States, who must have special knowledge or experience, the life senators of Italy, who must have brought honor to the nation, the Toyshens nominees to the Irish Senate. The purpose is to bring into the service of the House the expertise that modern governance demands in finance, in science, in law, in technology, in public health, expertise that the ordinary context of politics does not always return, and from which the pool of those available for ministerial service is widened. The third reason is arithmetic, and it is decisive. Even with these 10 appointees, the Senate remains very nearly 9/10 non-appointed. Across both houses of this parliament, the bicameral legislature remains more than 97% non-appointed. In the National Assembly, the directly elected chamber, the chamber closest to the people, is not touched by this clause at all. 10 expert voices in a parliament of 370 does not dilute the people's representation. They enrich the quality of the legislation that representation produces. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the function of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Clause 16. Mr. Speaker, sir, Clause 16 amends the words that describe the function our defense forces, replacing the phrase, and I quote, "and to uphold this Constitution," close quote, with the phrase, and I quote, "in accordance with this Constitution." It has been suggested, Mr. Speaker, that this weakens the constitutional position of the military. The truth is precisely the opposite. The amendment strengthens the subordination of the military to the Constitution. And I want to explain why. Because the point is important and it is widely misunderstood. Consider the question honestly. Either the defense forces are subject to the Constitution, or they are a co-equal guardians of it, standing alongside the elected president, the elected parliament, and the courts. If they are subject to the Constitution, as in every constitutional democracy, they must be then in accordance with the Constitution, is the correct expression of that subordination. And the old wording, which cast the military as an independent upholder of the Constitution in its own right, was the anomaly. The institution whose function is to uphold the Constitution are the elected and appointed civilian institutions. The president takes an oath to uphold it. Judges take an oath to uphold it. Members of this house take an oath to uphold it. The defense forces protect the nation within the constitutional framework that those civilian institutions uphold and interpret. They are not a parallel constitutional authority. To suggest, Mr. Speaker, otherwise is to invite exactly the danger our history warns against. Nor is the constitutional anchor of civilian control removed by this clause, for that anchor was never Section 212. It is Section 208, which has required since 2018 that every member of the security services act in accordance with the Constitution and the law, that none act in a partisan manner, and that none further the interests of a political party. Section 208 is not touched by this bill. It stands entirely. Clause 16 simply harmonizes the language of Section 212 with the standard Section 208 with the standard Section 208 already set, and in doing so, it reinforces Section 213 and 214, the provisions that place the deployment of our forces in the hands of the elected president, subject to the oversight of this parliament. The bill's own memorandum states this purpose plainly. The amendment is intended to reinforce sections 213 and 214. The civilian and constitutional control of the military is not weakened by clause 16. It is made textually consistent and thereby strengthened. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me now to turn to consequential amendments. That is clauses 5, 6, 18, 19, and 22.
Point of privilege, Honorable Speaker. Point of privilege.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill closes with a section of clauses that align and complete the constitutional text, each following from a decision taken elsewhere in the bill.
Honorable Minister, just a minute. There's a point of order. Yes.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, I want you to take note of a post that has been posted on our parliamentary platform.
You wanted to do what?
I want you to take note on a post that has been posted on our parliamentary platform, social media platform. It is saying Honorable Molokele has crossed over to ZANU-PF. It's not true. They must respect. We have got Honorable.
Order, Honorable Member.
Yes, yeah.
Order, Honorable Member. Order. I thought you should be listening to what the Honorable Minister is saying, rather than being distracted by social media, which may not be accurate. The Honorable Minister, you know the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, the bill closes with a section of clauses that align and complete the constitutional text, each following from a decision taken elsewhere in the bill, aligning with previous amendments to the Constitution or correcting an arrangement that experience has shown to be unsound. Clause 5 removes the word first before Vice President, a remnant of the running mate system this House set aside in Amendment number 2 of 2021. With that system gone, the word implied has no further work to do, and the text is best tidied out. Clause 6 aligns the rules of succession with the new method of election, so that a vacancy in the presidency is filled by the same constitutional pathway that fills the office in the first place. Clause 18 and 19 consolidate the work of the Zimbabwe Gender Commission within the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know this is among the most keenly contested proposals in the bill, and it deserves a careful answer rather than a slogan. Let me give the House the single most important fact, the one that critics do not engage. The constitutional commitment to gender equality does not reside in the Gender Commission, and it is not touched by this bill. Gender equality is a founding value of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, under Section 3, which cannot be amended without a referendum. The right to equality and non-discrimination is entrenched in Section 56 in the Declaration of Rights. The rights of women are entrenched in Section 8. The state's duty to promote gender balance is in Section 17. Not one of these provisions is amended by so much as a word. They remain exactly where the founding framers of this constitution place them justifiably in every court, in the land. What clauses 18 and 19 change is not the commitment, but the vehicle. The gender mandate is not abolished. It is written expressly and at constitutional level into the mandate of the Human Rights Commission in the amended section 243. This is consolidation, not abandonment, Mr. Speaker. And it is the practice of many of the world's respected democracies. The United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand each pursue gender equality through an integrated human rights body rather than a standalone commission. Kenya combines its gender mandate with equality, disability, and minority mandates in a single body. The international instruments our critics cite, the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, the Maputo Protocol, the SADC Protocol on Gender, require appropriate and effective machinery for gender equality. Not one of them prescribes a standalone commission as the only permissible form. This reform places them where human rights are protected, at the center of human rights architecture rather than at its periphery. Clause 22 draws the curtain on the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. This was, Mr. Speaker, from the outset, a transitional institution. When this House was created in 2013, it was given a defined 10-year mandate, a body built for a season, not for perpetuity. But Clause 22 does not abandon the work of reconciliation. It does the opposite. The duty of the state to promote national reconciliation, peace and unity is set out in Section 10 of the Constitution, which the bill does not touch, and that duty endures. What Clause 22 does is to carry the work of reconciliation out of a single time-bound commission into the permanent responsibility of the state, where it can be pursued through dedicated legislation, purpose-built for the task, or under the auspices of the Human Rights Commission. Reconciliation, peace building, and national healing are too important to be confined to one commission with a closing mandate. They must become enduring obligations of the state itself. That is what this clause secures. Mr. Speaker, I now conclude. Mr. Speaker, this bill is best understood not as an act of invention, but as an act of completion. When this nation gave itself a new constitution in 2013, it promised itself a modern, multi-party democracy built to deliver development and social progress. Yet it carried forward, untouched, two features fashioned for a country that no longer exists. An electoral cycle so short that the next campaign began the moment the last one ended. An institutional design left half complete, with mandates that overlapped and offices placed in quiet tension with one another. We know the price the country has paid. A generation of perennially contested elections, of capital that took flight, of confidence withheld, of potential left waiting on the next ballot. What this bill, Mr. Speaker, seeks to do is to recalibrate the architecture of our democracy so that it serves the work of governing and the task of development rather than the endless fighting of elections. And it does so for the institution and never for the individual. For the steadier season, it creates belongs to the office and to the Republic and to no person at all. Consider what the nation stands to gain: a disciplined and continuous season of government in which a program such as Vision 2030 can be carried through to completion. A calmer way of choosing its highest office, drawn from the settled practice of mature democracies such as Botswana and South Africa, which lowers the temperature of national politics and ties the executive to the confidence of the people's elected chamber. A cleaner and more trustworthy voters' roll, kept where the records of every citizen's life already live. Boundaries drawn by a dedicated and expert hand and settled well before any contest, so that no one who runs the race also draws the field. A highest court able to speak with authority on the questions that matter most. Institutions that are each clearer and stronger for having a single task they can discharge well. And a place, Mr. Speaker, and a place, once more, among the African and Commonwealth democracies whose tested practices these reforms reflect. This is the choice before the House, Mr. Speaker, between a constitution built for the endless electoral conflict and a constitution built for the long walk of development, between a republic that begins itself anew every few years and a republic, Mr. Speaker, permitted at last to finish what it starts. I do not ask, Mr. Speaker, this House to take a leap. I ask it to take a step, a measured step, a lawful step, an overdue step within the power this Parliament holds. For what this bill offers, Mr. Speaker, in the end, is the one thing a developing nation can never buy back once it has been spent. It offers time. Time given to the office, not to the person, to the republic, and not to the moment. Time not to perpetually campaign, but to build. Mr. Speaker said, this bill is sound in its law. Mr. Speaker, it is principled in its purpose, inspiring in its aspirations, and it is overdue in its time. Mr. Speaker, therefore I commend the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 Bill HB1 Bill of 2026 to this Honorable House, and I accordingly move that the bill be now read a second time. I thank you.
Before I put the question, I want to address myself to the issue raised by the Honorable Mshoriwa regarding Section 98, subsection 1E of our standing orders. In the case of Divine Mambi Ni Owe versus, either you want to listen or you can go in peace outside. I'll repeat. The case is one of Divine Muhambi Niobe versus Parliament of Zimbabwe, CCZ 12/23. That's the citation of the case. The Constitutional Court clarified the scope and limits of the sub judice rule in relation to Parliament. The court held that the sub judice rule, whose purpose is to prevent interference with ongoing judicial proceedings, is not absolute. While Parliament must generally avoid discussing matters pending before the courts, this restriction cannot override constitutional obligations. Specifically, the court found that Parliament, through the Parliamentary Legal Committee, could not rely on the sub judice rule to delay or avoid its constitutional duty under Section 152 of the Constitution to examine statutory instruments. The rule must yield where strict adherence would frustrate constitutional mandates. It went on to rule that accordingly, the court concluded that standing orders incorporating the sub judice rule are subordinate to the Constitution, and Parliament is obliged to act even if related litigation is pending. In essence, the decision affirms that the sub judice rule is a qualified procedural restraint, not a barrier to fulfilling constitutional responsibilities. The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs that the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Number 3 Bill HB1 2026 be now read a second time. Is there any debate? Honorable Zobo.
On a point of privilege, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Who is speaking? I can't.
Honorable
Yes,
Tachwai.
yes, Honorable Tachwai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I was going to request your office to favor this House with information on how the CAB3 process is going to unfold. How the process is going to unfold, and in particular, issues around how we are going to be voting. There's been a lot of speculation in terms of how the process is going to...
Honorable Member, we are not yet there.
I understand.
We are not yet there.
That is the reason why I say maybe
now,
because...
keep your cool, we are not yet there.
Mr. Speaker, if you
Order! I'm saying we are not yet there. And the point so relevant, the process will be carried accordingly. Honorable Zobo.
Good afternoon, Honorable Speaker, sir. In response to the Minister's second reading speech, I rise to present the report of the Joint Committee led by the Portfolio Committee of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. Honorable Speaker, sir, the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Bill number 3 was officially published in the Government Gazette on 16th February 2026. Accordingly, Parliament invited the members of the public to express their views on the proposed bill in public meetings and through written admissions in accordance with Section 328, Paragraph 4 of the Constitution. The bill was referred to the Portfolio Committee on Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, recognizing the bill's cross-cutting implications for governance, gender equality, human rights, traditional leadership, among other issues. Parliament constituted a joint committee in order to ensure a comprehensive review of the bill. The joint committee comprised the Portfolio Committee on Women's Affairs, Community and Small and Medium Enterprises Development, Defense, Home Affairs, Security Services and War Veterans Affairs, Local Government, Public Works and National Housing, and Youth Empowerment, Development and Vocational Training, as well as the Thematic Committee on Human Rights, Peace and Security, and Gender and Development. In fulfillment of Section 141 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which mandates Parliament to facilitate public involvement in its legislative process, the Joint Committee embarked on a nationwide public consultations. These consultations were designed to ensure that the legislative process is informed by the lived experiences, aspirations, and democratic concerns of the Zimbabwean citizenry. Objectives. The objectives of the analysis of the bill were A, to assess whether the bill is in the interest of the public in order to ensure broader consensus. B, to check whether the proposed provisions are consistent with other provisions of the Constitution. C, to consider the impact of the bill. D, to check whether the proposed amendments align with regional and international best practice. Methodology. To ensure a vigorous and inclusive cumulative process, the following methodology was employed. After the gazetting of the bill, Parliament immediately began receiving written submissions made directly to Parliament and through emails from the public until the 18th of May, 2026. Parliament also deployed 11 teams drawn from the 8 parliamentary committees to cover each of the administrative districts in all the country's 10 provinces. Public hearings were held in the districts from 29th March to the 1st of April 2026. There was real-time recording of the submissions from participants during the hearings. Physical documents submitted by the public during the public hearings were collected at every venue to accommodate those who did not get an opportunity to speak. The grand total of the written submissions, I'm happy to report, is now 440,037. 440,037. Of those 440,037 submissions, 102 submissions were in support of the bill. 2,935 of the submissions were against the bill. To fulfill the constitutional requirement under Section 157(4), which provides that the amendments may be made to the electoral law or its subsidiary legislation unless the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, ZEC, has been consulted and its recommendations duly considered, the Commission presented its recommendations to the Joint Committee on the 14th of May, 2026. During the same meeting, the Zimbabwe Gender Commission and the Council of Chiefs also presented their views on the bill. Thereafter, the Joint Committee conducted 5 meetings to deliberate on the oral and written submissions before crafting its draft report, which was considered and adopted. To that end, the committee expresses its profound gratitude to the people of Zimbabwe who took their time to attend the public hearings held in the administrative districts and present their written submissions on the bill. Committee's findings. Clause 2, we'll start with clause number 2, the transferring of voter registration and management of the voters' roll from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to the Registrar General. The majority of submissions strongly supported transferring the responsibility for voter registration as well as compiling and maintaining the voters' roll from ZEC to the Civil Registry Department Registrar General. Participants argued that the Registrar General is uniquely positioned to maintain an accurate, up-to-date voters' roll, effectively preventing the prolonged inclusion of deceased or non-existent individuals. Given that the Registrar General already serves as the custodian of vital civil records, including birth and death certificates, as well as national identity data, the public noted that this transition would enhance administrative efficiency, accuracy, and centralize accountability. Furthermore, it would eliminate a duplication of roles, minimize data management inconsistencies, and ultimately strengthen the integrity and credibility of the voters' roll. This approach also aligns with international benchmarks where civil registries routinely manage voter registration data. Ultimately, this reallocation of duties would allow ZEC to concentrate more effectively on its core mandates of voter education and election management. The minority view opposed transferring the voters' roll to the Registrar General, recalling that management of the roll had previously been stripped from that office due to some serious concerns over credibility and manipulation. The minority further argued that ZEC is far better suited to manage the roll, raising several key concerns regarding the proposed transfer. It was submitted that as a government department, the Registrar General lacks the constitutional safeguards designed to protect institutional independence, expertise, and integrity. Shifting this responsibility risks increasing executive influence and undermining the neutrality of the electoral process. In addition, fragmenting the responsibilities of electoral management compromises accountability, which could severely damage both public trust and international credibility. Furthermore, entrusting voter registration to independent commissions aligns with established best practices across other SADC countries. It was submitted that the significant financial investments already made into ZEC's biometric voter registration serve as a compelling reason to maintain the current structure rather than introducing an inefficient administrative shift. During consultations with ZEC, the committee was informed about the potential occurrence of fragmented roles among institutions. It further underscored the need for clear legislative timelines spelling out when the voters' roll will be availed to the electoral body. ZEC had migrated from the ward-based to the polling station-based voting, as well as biometric registration of voters, and hoped that these milestones would be maintained if this function was transferred to the Registrar General. In its humble submission, it had recommended that the status quo should be maintained. The committee's observations. The committee noted that leveraging on vital civil service records provides a distinct technical advantage in maintaining an accurate voters' roll, while simultaneously acknowledging legitimate concerns surrounding the need for institutional independence for the electoral body. Furthermore, the committee observed the significant investments already made by ZEC, particularly the acquisition of biometric equipment for effective voter registration, and also the poll-based voting system, which was introduced in 2018. Committee's recommendations. The committee recommends the adoption of Clause 2 to decisively address historical challenges where deceased individuals have remained on the voters' roll. We're turning now to clause number 3, the changing the election of the president from a direct public vote to election by parliament. The majority of submissions strongly favored this amendment, arguing that the proposed model would foster greater collaboration and mutual confidence between the executive and the parliament. ultimately enhancing governance and policy alignment. They emphasized that electing the president through parliament would substantially reduce the immense financial cost of organizing nationwide presidential elections. Furthermore, they noted that past elections had been marred by political tension, violence, and contestation, especially in respect of results for presidential elections, issues that would be mitigated or eliminated by narrowing the electorate to directly elected representatives. Supporters pointed to successful continental presidents, noting that nations like South Africa and Botswana utilized this system to achieve greater political stability, minimize electoral expenses, and achieve robust institutional accountability. Back home, they observed that an identical model was already successfully utilized at the local government level, where mayors are elected by sitting councillors, proving the system's practicality and familiarity within the government's existing governance structures. Finally, they argued that electing the president through parliament remains fully consistent with Section 88, paragraph 1 of the Constitution, which states that executive authority derives from the people of Zimbabwe and must be exercised in accordance with this Constitution. Because citizens will continue to exercise their democratic will through their elected representatives, reviving a legitimate constitutional practice utilized between 1980 and 1990. Given that Parliament, in terms of Section 97 of the Constitution, has a role to impeach the President, they indicated that it was consistent for it to elect the President. Conversely, a minority of submissions opposed the amendment, viewing the shift as a retrogressive step that would dismantle the democratic milestones achieved since independence by undermining the fundamental principle of one person, one vote. Dissenting voices argued that restricting the presidential vote exclusively to members of parliament would effectively circumvent the will of the broader electorate, fundamentally altering the source and character of executive legitimacy. From their perspective, removing the direct vote represents an erosion of democratic participation and a direct infringement on every citizen's constitutional right to free, fair, and regular elections with regard to the election of the president. Committee's observations. The committee noted that since Section 97 of the Constitution vests the power to remove the president in Parliament, therefore Parliament should ordinarily possess the authority to elect the president. The committee is convinced that adopting a legislative appointment model would significantly reduce the fiscal burden associated with direct presidential elections. Furthermore, this approach would bolster political stability by minimizing contentious electoral disputes which have characterized previous presidential elections, while firmly anchoring executive accountability within representative democratic institutions. The committee's recommendations. Informed by the observations, the committee strongly recommends the adoption of Clause 3, thereby mandating Parliament to elect the President. Clause number 4. Clauses 4, 9, and 10. This is the extension of the electoral cycle of the President and members of Parliament from 5 to 7 years and its application to the incumbent. The majority of public submissions favored the adoption of longer electoral cycles, primarily because reducing the frequency of elections mitigates both the immense fiscal burden on the state and the disruptive perpetual campaign mode that frequently derails governance and development. The majority argued that extended electoral cycles diffuse the political toxicity inherent in election seasons, providing government with the necessary time horizons to fully implement long-term projects while ensuring political stability and continuity. They noted that development activities routinely slow down or halt during election periods as national focus shifts entirely towards political processes. Furthermore, submissions pointed out that extended mandates are not unprecedented globally, citing Egypt's 6-year presidential cycle and Azerbaijan's 7-year electoral cycle as successful examples. Conversely, the minority submissions contended that in a democratic society, leaders must remain directly elected by the populace, arguing that structural constitutional changes of this magnitude should be subjected to a national referendum to guarantee broad public participation and democratic legitimacy. They argued that longer electoral cycles disenfranchise citizens and weaken executive accountability by concentrating power within political elites. Extending the electoral cycle was viewed as diluting the democratic cycles that keep leadership answerable to the public, as in shorter terms, the electorate swiftly removes underperforming public officials. The minority also viewed the proposed amendment as a direct violation of Section 328, paragraph 7 of the Constitution, which explicitly prohibits any amendment extending a term of office from benefiting the incumbent holder of that office. Committee's observations. The committee observed that major developmental projects, particularly those yielding the most profound socio-economic impacts on the populace, inherently require extended timelines to reach full implementation and completion. Members further noted that global jurisdictions utilizing longer electoral mandates consistently exhibit greater political stability and achieve more meaningful, sustained progress in their national development agendas. While the committee holds the view that a long-term, an 8 or even 10-year term would be ideal to maximize these development benefits, a balanced compromise is necessary to align with public feedback and institutional realities. The committee's recommendations. Consequently, the committee recommends the adoptions of clauses 4, 9, and 10, thereby extending the electoral cycle for the President and Parliament to 7 years. Clause 5. Removal of reference to the first Vice President for consistency. Public submissions were entirely unanimous in their support of the proposal to eliminate hierarchical distinctions between the Vice Presidents. The public observed that utilizing the uniform designation of Vice President without hierarchical stratification promotes a sense of equality within the Presidium. This structural alignment is anticipated to foster greater political unity and enhance the principles of collective leadership at the highest level of executive government. Committee's recommendations. The committee concurs with submissions and recommends that this clause should be adopted as presented. Clause number 6. Provision for Vice President to be elected by Parliament in the event of a vacancy, removing automatic succession. The public submissions were once again unanimous, including that the proposed amendment represents a practical cost-saving measure. Stakeholders emphasized that this mechanism effectively averts the prohibitive financial expenses associated with staging mid-term presidential elections, while simultaneously safeguarding national stability by immediately closing any governmental succession vacuum that otherwise might arise. Committee's recommendations. This committee concurs with the public's views and recommends that this clause should be adopted as presented. Clause number 7, raising the qualifications for appointment as Attorney General to those required of a Supreme Court judge. The committee received a diverse range of submissions regarding the proposed amendment, with the clear majority expressing strong support for the measure. The majority argued that aligning the qualifications of the Attorney General with those of a Supreme Court judge provides a vital safeguard for the office. They emphasized that such stringent criteria would guarantee that the appointee possesses the highest caliber of legal expertise, professional competence, and personal integrity. Consequently, this elevated standard is expected to significantly improve the quality of legal counsel provided to the government and substantially strengthen the state's capacity to handle complex constitutional and legislative affairs. On the contrary, the minority view raised concerns that the amendment could overly restrict the recruitment process. Committee's recommendations. Having carefully weighed both perspectives, the committee stands in alignment with the majority submissions. It recognizes that the long-term benefits of securing top-tier legal and constitutional stewardship for the nation outweigh the risks of a more restrictive selection pool. Accordingly, the committee recommends this clause for adoption without amendment. Clause 4.8, can you hear me? Clause 8, increase in the membership of Senate from 80 to 90 by including 10 presidential appointees. The proposed increase in Senate membership garnered a strong majority of support from public submissions. The majority argued that expanding the chamber would inject vital specialized knowledge and diverse professional expertise into the legislative process. Furthermore, the public noted that a larger membership would broaden the pool of qualified individuals available for ministerial appointments. They also view the additional 10 members as necessary to bridge political and social divides by incorporating non-partisan objectives into governance. The amendment is therefore expected to elevate the quality of decision-making and foster greater national cohesion. In contrast, the minority submissions expressed reservations, cautioning that increasing membership could undermine the Senate's independence and compromise its crucial role in holding the executive accountable. Dissenting voices warned that the shift might weaken the chamber's representative character and create a public perception of excessive executive influence over the legislative branch. Additionally, they argued that the amendment could result in a Senate composition disproportionate to the outcomes of the popular voting process, thereby eroding its democratic legitimacy. Committee's recommendations. After thorough consideration of both the public enthusiasm for enhanced expertise and the expressed concerns regarding institutional balance, the committee finds that the potential benefits to governance and national unity were compelling. Consequently, the committee recommends this clause for adoption. We now turn to clauses 11, 12, and 13. That is the establishment of the Delimitation Commission, transfer of delimitation functions from ZEC to the new Constitution. The majority of submissions strongly favored the establishment of a separate Delimitation Commission, arguing it would significantly alleviate the heavy workload currently borne by ZEC The majority believed that a dedicated entity would foster greater fairness, transparency, and accessibility throughout the electoral process. Furthermore, they emphasized that such an institutional split would cultivate technical specialization in the complex task of drawing constituency boundaries, thereby directly addressing historical shortcomings in ZEC's handling of previous delimitation exercises. On the other hand, the minority raised concerns regarding institutional independence and public trust. They cautioned that transferring the delimitation mandate away from ZEC might weaken the primary electoral management body and spark fears of political meddling in electoral affairs. Committee's observations. The committee observed that past delimitation exercises managed by ZEC did encounter notable challenges, which underscores the merit of a specialized body. However, the committee highlights the absolute necessity for meticulous coordination between ZEC and the newly proposed commission to guarantee a seamless transfer of roles and operational data. Furthermore, in alignment with the direct transmission from ZEC itself, the committee agrees that the new body's title should omit the word electoral. This linguistic distinction is crucial to clearly separate its specific boundary drawing mandate from ZEC's broader overarching electoral responsibilities. The committee's recommendations. Having carefully balanced the need for technical specialization against the imperative of safeguarding institutional independence, the committee recommends the adoption of clauses 11, 12, and 13 to establish a dedicated boundary drawing authority. To ensure absolute clarity regarding its mandate, the committee further recommends that this new entity be formally named the Zimbabwe Delimitation Commission. Clause 14, jurisdiction of the Constitutional Court. The majority of submissions strongly supported extending the court's jurisdiction beyond strictly political disputes to encompass matters of significant public importance. They argued that this expansion would greatly broaden access to justice and ensure that pressing national issues receive timely, definitive resolutions. Furthermore, stakeholders believed that this shift would substantially enhance the court's vital role as a primary guardian of constitutional rights. On the contrary, the minority submissions raised concerns that broadening the court's purview would trigger an unmanageable increase in its workload, ultimately leading to case backlogs and judicial delays. Some also expressed concern that this shift might inadvertently deprioritize specialized knowledge, incentivizing the selection of judges with general legal expertise over those with deep specializations in constitutional law and human rights. The committee's observations. The committee observed that apprehensions regarding a crippling workload, systemic backlogs, and severe delays are unfounded and unsupported by empirical data. While an expanded jurisdiction will undeniably increase the volume of cases brought before the court, the committee notes that this does not automatically translate into judicial delays. Rather, the restructuring will effectively increase the number of available judicial levels, optimizing the allocation of legal resources and maintaining efficiency. The committee observed that there would be problems to do with the jurisdiction of the Supreme and Constitutional Courts, which may eventually need to compete in terms of which matters can be finalized by which court. There will also be a problem to do with the hierarchy of the two courts, making it difficult to determine which courts holds final authority. If the Constitutional and Supreme Courts interpret laws differently, lower courts are left confused about which legal precedents binds them. Committee's recommendations. The committee recommends for the adoption of the clause with an amendment to clarify the hierarchy of the two courts. Clause 15, amendment of section 180, appointment of judges. The majority of submissions supported the proposed amendment to vest the appointment of judges in the President to be exercised in consultation with the Judicial Service Commission. They expressed the view that this mechanism would strengthen judicial independence and streamline the selection process by eliminating perceived inefficiencies associated with current procedures. In contrast, the minority submissions argued that public interviews remain an indispensable safeguard for ensuring transparency, upholding meritocracy, and maintaining public confidence in the judiciary. They cautioned that transitioning it to a presidential appointment process would dilute existing constitutional protections designed to insulate the judiciary from excessive executive influence. The committee's recommendations. The committee notes the competing viewpoints regarding excessive involvement and public transparency in judicial selections, as well as the regional precedents cited by the public. However, having balanced the objective of administrative efficiency and executive accountability against these concerns, the committee stands in alignment with the majority view. Accordingly, the committee recommends the clause for adoption. Clause 16, amendment of section 212, functions of the Defense Forces. The majority of submissions expressed strong support for the amendment, operating under the view that the proposed changes would effectively limit undue military influence in civilian governments. Those in support of the clause argued that establishing clearer boundaries for the military would safeguard democratic processes and consequently prove vital to maintaining long-term national stability. On the other hand, a minority of submissions raised concerns regarding the broader implications of the change. They cautioned that the amendment could inadvertently and materially weaken the constitutional fidelity obligation of the Defense Forces. Committee's recommendations. The committee acknowledges the crucial importance of balancing civil-military relations and preserving the constitutional integrity of the armed forces. However, recognizing that fortifying democratic governance and securing state stability were paramount public interests, the committee stands in agreement with the majority. Accordingly, the committee recommends the clause for adoption. Amendment of section 239, that's clause number 17, functions of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Members of the public were unanimous in their support for repealing these specific functions and from ZEC and reassigning them to the Registrar General. Contributors consistently expressed the view that this institutional realignment would significantly improve administrative efficiency and reduce institutional overload. By divesting ZEC of these secondary duties, the amendment would allow the Commission to focus its resources and attention entirely on its core mandate of conducting and supervising national elections. During consultations with ZEC, the committee was informed by the electoral body that Clause 17 had repealed its function to accredit observers, but the accreditation of observers was not assigned to any other agency or body. Committee's observations. The committee re-emphasized that the successful execution of this structural shift depends on close, continuous, and effective collaboration between ZEC and the newly proposed Zimbabwe Delimitation Commission and the Registrar General to ensure a seamless transfer of relevant duties, operational data, and responsibility. Furthermore, the committee highlights that comprehensive staff training will be absolutely essential to guarantee that personnel were fully equipped to perform effectively in their newly defined roles. The committee's recommendations. The committee recommends this clause for adoption with an amendment for ZEC to retain the function for the accreditation of observers. Clauses 18 and 19, that is, the repeal of the Zimbabwe Gender Commission and amendment of Section 243. The majority of submissions supported the proposed repeal of the provisions establishing the Zimbabwe Gender Commission and the subsequent transfer of its responsibilities to a specialized department under the Zimbabwean Human Rights Commission. The submissions supporting the repeal of this provision argued that this consolidation would eliminate the duplication of institutional mandates, optimize resource utilization, and foster a more integrated, holistic approach to the protection of human rights within the country. The minority, which included submissions from officials of the Zimbabwe Gender Commission itself, strongly cautioned against the merger. They argued that absorbing gender portfolios into a broader human rights framework risks inducing gender blindness, where the specific needs of women and girls were overshadowed by general human rights concerns. They warned that the dissolution of a standalone entity would weaken dedicated oversight and reduce focused attention on systematic gender inequalities, gender-based discrimination, and gender-responsive governance. The Zimbabwe Gender Commission contended that the fiscal benefits of a merger would be negligible, as it has historically operated on just 0.02 to 0.04 of the national budget. Furthermore, the minority stressed that dismantling the commission could reverse historic gains and cause significant reputational damage, portraying Zimbabwe as backsliding on its commitments to gender equality. They noted that the standalone Gender Commission directly fulfills the nation's international obligations under the 1994 Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, as well as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination.
Honorable members, can you lower your whispers? Can you lower your whispers? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Speaker. Sir, their submissions emphasize that a dedicated commission remains best placed to demand accountability and track commitments across all government ministries, departments, and agencies. Committee's observations. The committee acknowledges that the majority of the submissions were in support of the clause regarding the need to repeal the provision and incorporate the Zimbabwe Gender Commission into the Zimbabwean Human Rights Commission. There were, however, concerns by some stakeholders, especially women's organizations, that gender issues still require a specialized standalone institution in line with the requirements under CEDAW and to ensure continued gender mainstreaming in the country. Committee's recommendations. The committee recommends that the Zimbabwe Gender Commission should remain in place and the clause should not be adopted. Clause 20, amendment of Section 259, appointment of the Prosecutor General. The majority of submissions expressed strong support for the proposed amendment to Section 259 regarding the appointment of a Prosecutor General. Submissions consistently pointed out that the changes would streamline the selection and appointment procedures, thereby significantly enhancing administrative efficiency within the justice system. Committee's recommendations: recognizing the clear operational benefits of a more responsive and streamlined appointment framework, the committee stands in agreement with the consensus of submissions. Accordingly, the committee recommends Clause 20 for adoption. Clause 21, amendment of Section 281, principles to be observed by traditional leaders. The majority of public submissions supported the amendment allowing traditional leaders to participate in political activities. The public, including several traditional leaders themselves, expressed their view that as an integral part of the Zimbabwean citizenry, traditional leaders should enjoy the same fundamental political rights as ordinary citizens. The public submitted that their active involvement would enhance inclusivity, strengthen community representation, and accelerate development at the local level. On the contrary, the minority view, supported by a submission from the Chief's Council, steadfastly opposed the amendment. They argued that the existing constitutional prohibition on political participation was a vital safeguard that insulates the institution of traditional leadership from political manipulation, thereby protecting its integrity and independence, as enshrined in Section 283C of the Constitution. The Chief's Council cautioned that political involvement would compromise the neutrality expected of traditional leaders, thereby risking deep social divisions and expose vulnerable rural populations to discrimination on political grounds. Furthermore, concerns were raised that political partisanship would distort the administration of justice within communal areas, fostering political intolerance and raising the specter of reprisals against dissenting community members. In addition, the Chief's Council highlighted that engaging in political activities would directly violate the constitutional mandates requiring traditional leaders to act impartially and forbidding them from political alignment in their capacity as judicial officers, as espoused in sections 1631 and 1654, as read together with Section 283C of the Constitution. In addition, the Chief's Council submitted that there was need for an amendment to Section 285, paragraph 6 of the Constitution, to align the term of office for the President and Deputy President of the National Council of Chiefs with that of the presidential and parliamentary terms as proposed in clauses 4 and 9 of the bill. In fact, the Chief's Council advocated for an amendment of clause 21 of the bill to provide for the repealing of section 2856 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe to remove all prescribed term limits for both the President and the Deputy President of the National Council of Chiefs. Committee's observations. The committee noted the contradiction between the right of traditional leaders to participate in political activities as proposed in Clause 21 and the institutional imperative of traditional leaders' neutrality, particularly regarding their roles as judicial officers in terms of sections 1631 and 1654 of the Constitution. Committee's recommendations. While the majority of traditional leaders and the general public supported the provision regarding the participation of traditional leaders in politics, the proposed amendment is in conflict with Section 1631, 1654 of the Constitution, and as such, the status quo should remain. Secondly, the committee recommends for the alignment of the electoral cycles for the President and Deputy President of the National Council of Chiefs from 5 to 7 years as per the proposed parliamentary and presidential terms. Clause 22, National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. The majority of submissions express support for the proposed repeal of Part 6 of Chapter 2. In any event, as has been mentioned previously, the term of the commission had already expired, and therefore the committee's recommendations acknowledge the competing views regarding the optimal timeline for transitional justice institutions. The committee also noted that it was a procedural matter since the commission had ceased to exist in 2023. Eventually, the conclusion. Generally, the Joint Committee was in support of the bill and urges the two houses to consider the proposed recommendations. In its analysis, the Joint Committee sought to ensure that there was consistency between the bill's provisions and the Constitution, as well as aligning with the expectations and aspirations of the people and regional and international best practices. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Zobo, for completeness of your report. If you could include the two annexures of your report, if you can give that to the clerks at the table so that those two annexures appear in the Hansard, as well as tables 31, 2, 3, 4, and table 5. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that debate to now adjourn.
On a point of privilege. On a point of privilege, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order. I think it is in order that you need time to digest the presentation by the Honorable Minister and the Chairman of the Justice and Legal Committee. So it's only fair that you apply your minds so that when you make your contributions, we avoid some repetition.
On a point of privilege, Mr. Speaker. On a point of privilege, Mr. Speaker, say, I am here.
Where?
To your left, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, what?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, say. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is the right.
What is the relationship with what I have just indicated?
No, it's with relation to what has been provided already.
Pardon?
What has been tabled already. It's just, that's why my privilege is raised, not from your comments, but from what has been raised already by the Chair and the Minister of Justice. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
You wanted to do what about those two?
No, I have got a point of privilege, Mr. Speaker, with relation to the right of every MP to debate. Mr. Speaker said.
Order.
Yes.
Order. We need to debate and shoot at the target. We don't want a repetition. Your standing orders say if you are going to repeat over and over again what has been said already, you will be ruled out of order. So it is better to study these two presentations, and then you will have enough preparation to debate accordingly. Thank you.
The Speaker said, my issue is different.
Thank you.
The Speaker said, if you can indulge me.
I've indulged you already.
It has nothing to do with this case.
It has been moved.
Mr. Speaker said,
can you take your seat?
Mr. Speaker said, it's a different.
Can you take your seat?
You must hear me, Mr. Speaker, say with your indulgence.
Can you take your seat?
Give us an opportunity to listen.
I thought you agreed with me already. It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Those of the contra opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and the debate is adjourned. What date, Honorable Minister? What date?
Tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Order. Order. Can you take your seats? Members from both sides, take your seats. Take your seats. We have to behave honorably. When a motion has been moved, you just stand up because you hear the House must adjourn. You have to observe the Speaker's process in silence. Now, how do you do that when you are just marching out? It's against the standing orders. Until the presiding officer leaves by that door there, then you can leave. That's the order. It has been moved that the House do now adjourn. Is there any debate? I put the question that the House do now adjourn. Those of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contra opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and the House is adjourned. Until tomorrow.
Thank you.